guys, ETJ Writes here. Today I'm going to be counting down the top 10 signs to know you're in an ETJ Writes novel. I was tagged to do this challenge on WriteBlur, which is the writer community over on Tumblr, by one of the writers over there, Cathartically Sarcastic. I'll put a link to her Tumblr down in the description below, and you can check that out after you're done with this video. These are in no particular order, but number one on the list is caves. Just caves everywhere. I love me some good caves. I always used to love seeing caves when I was a kid, and as an adult I've had the chance to exhibit some of my books at a local caverns, and that's been really fun. So I always have my characters going through caves of some sort, whether they're exploring them or people are living underground in them, or there's some kind of special property about them that is vital to the plot. Caves definitely feature in the first two novels I've written in my current WIP, my work in progress, and also are going to be featuring in upcoming novels. Probably at least the next 4 novels I write will have caves in them as a pretty important element because I love them so much. Number 2 is horses. Again, that's something I've loved since I was really little. Been writing on and off since I was probably around 5-6 years old. It hasn't been something I've been able to do a whole lot of recently, but whenever I've done it, I've enjoyed it, and I like to work that into my story, whether it is characters riding horses, being around horses, riding animals that are like horses, and when horses aren't available, that's when speeder bikes and things like that come into play. Number 3 is loads of angst. I have my characters go through some pretty hard times. I love happily ever afters, but I do feel that they have to earn them first. So my characters are going to go through some hardships, heartbreaks, tough times before they're able to come out on the other side. So just be prepared. If you read one of my novels, you might find yourself reaching for a tissue. Number 4 on the list of how to spot if you're in an ETJ Writes novel is happy and healthy committed relationships. I love to have my background characters in relationships where they've been together a long time, or if they haven't been together long, it's very sweet young romance, but they love each other very much and they're not doing all kinds of crazy toxic things, because there's plenty of media out there with unhealthy couples, unhealthy relationships, and that's not what I want to portray. It's been really fun working on my current WIP because I am taking 2 characters who do not have any kind of connection and putting them together and beginning to build the foundation for a relationship that is going to remain healthy, happy, and committed for the rest of their lives. Number 5 is long chapters. I love reading long chapters, and so I tend to end up writing long chapters as well. I do try to keep it under control for my readers because I know that not everybody likes to sit down and read something meaty in one setting, so I do try to limit myself. There are, however, occasions where I have been known to get up to over 12K. So when you pick up one of my novels, just be prepared. It's a little bit more toward the epic side on some of the chapter lengths. Number 6 is banter. It is so much fun to take characters who maybe aren't on the best of terms or have different types of worldviews and throw them together and then just let them bicker at each other for pages and pages and pages. Of course, in revision, sometimes you have to cut some of that stuff out, but really, the story just writes itself. And I think that kind of goes back to the whole happy, committed couples and relationships things, because it's really easy to write 2 characters arguing, and unfortunately, in a lot of our media, we take 2 characters who really shouldn't be together, but because of the banter, it's like, ooh, it's an interesting story, and sparks fly, and maybe they shouldn't. Going back to this idea of banter, I just like to do it with any characters that have an issue, and it's interesting to watch perhaps 2 characters who are going to become friends as they move from bantering that's filled with animosity to something that's much more teasing, lighthearted, and playful. Number 7, fight scenes. I do love a good swashbuckling fight scene or a pew-pew laser fight scene. That's probably inspired by my love of sci-fi, particularly Star Wars recently, and my love of all things medieval, and it's really fun to just have your characters get worked into these situations where they're in between a rock and a hard place and they just have no other option except for fighting to get out of it. It's really fun when you have characters that aren't very skilled too. They have to figure out, what do I need to do to get myself out of this situation? And fighting can be verbal as well. Characters can use wordplay and trickery and all sorts of things to get themselves out, but more often they are going to have physical fight scenes and use their environment, use things around them, use their skills and knowledge to be able to overcome the situation. Number 8 is running jokes. I like to set something up at the beginning of a novel, and sometimes these things don't come to me till revision. I have to go back and put it in. But I like to set something up and then refer to it as I go along. It makes me laugh every time I come across it, and I hope that readers will chuckle when they get to it, or at least smile, because they're like, oh, that's that thing that comes up again. There's several television shows that I like to watch where there are certain phrases or little references to things that come up over and over again, and they become more elaborate and silly as time goes on, and I just think that is so funny. I try not to overdo it, but I really do love including it, and you'll find that as a theme, just things that get referenced over and over again. Number 9, invented vocabulary. Especially when I'm working on fantasy and sci-fi, I am world building and coming up with all sorts of new items or new ways that things are going to be called, because in this fantasy world, perhaps we're not going to have the same language evolution for a word or an item that we have here in English. So I'm going to have to create something entirely new, create new systems of government and new words for just ordinary items. Try not to do too much with that because we don't want to get too crazy, but it's really fun, especially when you're doing in the future. How could something develop? For example, I have my versicles in THORUNN, and versicles is a word that combines hover and cycle. It's a hover cycle. So we had motorcycle, now we have a hover cycle, and kind of long to say, it develops into versicle. That's something that I really, really enjoy doing, but I do make sure to help readers out by including glossaries at the ends of my books. So if you ever get stuck with something that's unfamiliar, you can flip to the back of the book, get a definition of what that word is, and move on. And last but not least, we have family dynamics at number 10. I really love exploring the connections between families, whether it's biological family or found family, but just exploring how the characters react and respond to each other. Maybe they do something that they wouldn't have done because their father or mother told them not to do it. And if it was one of their friends or a different adult that they have a different level of respect for, they might have followed their advice. That's something that really, really comes into play in my second novel. There's a lot of family interaction between Lane, one of the main characters, and his mother and father, and what happens between all three of those characters and the family that they've moved in with, that they came to THORUNN to live with. All those interactions spin out across the entire novel and were really interesting to develop and dive into. My current story focuses even more on family dynamics because my main character, Candy, is adopted. And I think it's very, very important to emphasize the fact that adopted families are just as much real and meaningful as biological families, sometimes even better depending on if the adopted child comes from the foster care system because their biological family wasn't doing too well for them. But all those family dynamics are important and should be explored, and my character is going to have to deal with some interesting decisions when she actually is reunited with her biological family. Family dynamics is definitely a theme that really strongly comes out in my second novel and is going to be very, very much highlighted in my third novel that I'm working on. And then in my upcoming series that I'm planning, haven't quite started drafting yet, there's going to be different explorations of family dynamics. So I've done a lot of parents with children, and now I'm going to be focusing on siblings. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to have fun writing that. So there you have it, my top 10 how to know if you are in an ETJ Writes novel. I am going to leave this as an open tag for anybody on authortube who sees this and wants to take it up for themselves. But until next time, ETJ out.